Someone told me never to wear these shirts again, so I had to do it to him. Logic is trash. I want to say about 15 to 14 or so hours ago, the world was exposed to and contaminated with the atrocity of a song that is Twisted from French Montana, Juicy J, ASAP Rocky, and your boy Logic. Now, I don't get enjoyment out of calling Logic trash or saying that he's bad. But I just like to face facts. I like to live in my reality. I like to live my truth. Before you call me a hater and just say, oh, you're jumping on the Logic hate wave because it's popular or cool now. This is a guy who was supporting Logic when it wasn't cool, when people were still calling him corny, when he was a much better rapper. There's not a thing in Logic's discography that I don't know about, right? I've been listening to him since 2010. And I had nothing but high hopes for the man. So it saddens me today to see what he's become. Steve Harvey. Whenever something bad happens, I don't know why the first face that comes into my mind is Steve Harvey. Him or Morgan Freeman. Those two are just like the Antichrist to me. But Logic is the Steve Harvey of rap music. And I say this because Steve Harvey came into the game as a comedian with a slight edge to him. As he became significantly more popular, he switched into the comedy pop lane, which is a version of comedy that is extremely cookie cutter and extremely clean and extremely accessible. The type of comedy that contains really no risk and only reward. So it was no surprise to me when he ended up shucking and jiving on places like Family Feud. Not to say that there's something wrong with hosting Family Feud, but a comedian of Steve Harvey's caliber. Not only does Steve Harvey go on to continue hosting Family Feud like the uncle that keeps coming around after everyone already knows he touched you and you're performing on set as if his previous career had never happened. He goes on to start his own talk show where he gives unprofessional advice akin to what you might get if you asked an 8th grader to write about the meaning of life. Point is, Steve Harvey showed lots of promise and potential in the beginning of his career as a stand-up comedian, and as he got more popular going into the comedy pop lane, we found him just getting worse and worse as time went on. I liken him to Logic in that same way because Logic is a rapper who showed extreme promise and potential in the very beginning of his career with projects like Under Pressure. People think, regardless if they like Logic or not, that's most likely his best project. As he kept dropping albums and kept making music, he seemed to get progressively worse as he got more popular. Once he went mainstream pop, with songs like 1-800, extremely accessible, extremely easy to get behind message, really cookie cutter, it seemed the music just took a nosedive. Just like I feel Steve Harvey has zero direction in where he wants to go, and he's just creating content based off of the life that he has right now as opposed to remembering what inspired him to become a stand-up comedian in the first place. Logic, in my opinion, is in the exact same position, making music about his current lifestyle devoid of much substance or drive. Logic, instead of shucking and jiving for Family Feud, ended up shucking and jiving for the charts, delivering bars in the shallowest of waters, sympathizing with people self-harming because they didn't get enough likes on Instagram, which in hindsight, Confessions of a Dark Mind, if you've seen the new Joker film, is just a poorly written Joker, but instead of Joaquin Phoenix giving us an Oscar-worthy performance, it's Logic sympathizing with people who feel bad because they didn't get enough attention, or they didn't get the right type of attention. Now keep in mind, this new single is not Logic's song. Logic spits in his verse on Twisted 1-800. I'm not repeating that. I'm not repeating that. Not only is that terrible because the line itself is just terrible. 1-800 message that you went pop with, advocating people stick around so as not to fall victim to their mental health. A song that, despite me disliking for its really shallow message, you decided to use for the butt of a sex joke? I don't know if it was in an attempt to become more self-aware that people knew that you went pop, or that the song was really shallow, or that people were making jokes about who can relate. But just looking at it, I'm just like, bro, stop. Like, you build this massive connection with a bunch of people off the premise of the 1-800 single, only to trivialize it in this song. Aside from Logic, the track itself is just garbage, I don't know what's up with the drum patterns. I think the Juicy J performance is weak. I think French Montana should just stop making music. I don't even remember hearing ASAP Rocky. You know why I feel J. Cole is able to dominate features recently is because he's got some kind of plan or some kind of motive. He sees himself in the bigger picture as opposed to just in his music. But Logic, on the other hand, to me, is just run dry. This dude's like run out of content. Every album gets progressively worse because the story I gravitated toward 10 years ago, which is the story of the underdog making a come up, is gone. Logic has already made it, at least in comparison to where he was, which is why we're getting these uninspired and recycled lines constantly. The new record that he's teased, I might not listen to it because it's promoted in a way to get you to be in support of it because it mirrors or represents some of the imagery that was told lyrically off of his Under Pressure record. Why would I be excited about hearing a record that you're just rehashing? This new thing that might be teased as an Under Pressure Part 2 is just a rehash of a record that we all heard 5 years ago. Why would I be excited about that? It's like you don't have to go back to the old Logic to be entertaining. Rappers reinvent themselves all the time. It's just something that you haven't done yet. Just make something new. It's always like this dude is either wearing his influences so clearly on his sleeve, which is why I feel the constant references to other rappers in his own songs and on other people's guest verses keep coming up. Why is Yeezus being shouted out on a French Montana record? Why? Do you think shouting these people out gives you more validity as a hip-hop head or as some fan of the culture? It's either wearing his influences too heavily on his sleeves or trying to recreate a moment he had in his prime. And you shouldn't be out of your prime. You're not even 30 yet. I made a video a couple years ago talking about my issues with Logic at the time, but the fact that I still had hope in the dude, despite the fact that there were just a couple glaring things that I thought could improve the music and the listening experience for myself. But now it went from seeing the value in the talent to seeing just hopelessness. Logic to me has just embodied a guy who's run out of things to rap about, and I just think he's far too young for that to be the case. Keep getting album after album after album, and they've just progressively gotten worse and worse and worse until we come to 2019, where he's dropped 2 of the worst albums in the same year. Slop on my knob, girl, you're beautiful. That's word to God. Fam, like, you can say I made this to hate if you want. I'm not. You all know where I stand with Logic and how I feel about his music. But he went from, with this verse and everything he's done this year and kind of just the downhill spiral that he's just kept being on, he's gone from maybe B-list to F tier immediately. Like, and it wasn't like an immediate thing. It's just like, this has been a progressive decision. You know, this is something that had to happen eventually. He's at the bottom. Below all the mumble rap or whatever y'all like to call it, below everything, he's down there. Below, but at the very bottom. Below Yachty, below Bad Baby, below that Matt XD kid, below the I'ma fuck with you, that below him. Also, Steve Harvey and Logic are both 100% black. So, like, to close the video out, I get that not everyone can be a Dave Chappelle in comedy, just like everyone can't be a Kendrick Lamar in rap. But these two are examples of what happens when you don't remain comfortable. Logic could have followed that path in rap, just like Steve Harvey could have followed that path in comedy. But they didn't because, in my opinion, they just got comfortable. They just did the thing that, in my opinion, niggas do when they get money, which is get comfortable. The dude's just done. All right, I'm tired. That's all. That's all. It's nothing against him personally. It's just trash.